No action was taken to report out of closed session this evening. Would I like a motion please to adopt the agenda? So moved. Second. Is there any changes, additions to the agenda?
The only change is just a correction to consent calendar item G. It should read 1,533,000, and there's just a mistake.
Oh, even.
1,500, there should be 2 3s.
Oh, yeah, I like that. All those in favor of the agenda as presented? Aye. Opposed? We have special recognition this evening for the Virginia Beach Council of PTA's reflection winners, and who is? Jeff. There you are.
Do you want me to stand it for?
Yes.
Oh, there's a clicker down here. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm Jennifer Baker, very pleased to present the division winners of our PTA Reflections Contest. So we'd like to show you what the kids submitted, and their works are going to be progressing through district to 4th County, 4th District PTA soon. So welcome, and thank you for joining us. And the PTA Reflections Contest is in its 45th year. I won't read to you because I know all of you are very aware of this wonderful program. The thing that's most interesting about this process is that this contest is based on the creative aspect and not the technical merit. And so the children all have to submit artistic statements that go along with their entries, and it's a combination of their entry and the artistic statement that determine the winners in this contest. We have 6 categories to present this evening: music, dance, film, visual arts, photography, and literature. And the kids compete by grade level, so TK through grade 2, intermediate 3 through 5, middle school, high school, and there's also a special artist division. This is my favorite part. This year's theme was, what is your story? And here are our division winners. Not everybody is able to be present this evening, but I'd like you to see the students' work. Maya Trevino from Top of the World was our primary finalist in dance choreography. I don't believe Maya was here this evening. And Victoria, I'm going to try and advance through some of these, so if it's not responding to my click, there we go. From El Moro, Maggie is also not able to be here. Dance choreography.
Don't put your eyes down, you're not to blame. I know there are stories you can't fix.
I hate to cut these kids off so quick, but I know we have to keep this moving to go on this. From Thurston Middle School, our dance finalist, McKenna. McKenna, I don't believe you're here. Sorry to cut these kids so short. We do have literature winner Tessa Duran. Let's give Tessa a big round of applause. And literature from Top of the World, and we do have James Teixeira here. From Thurston Middle School, Kate Motherway. I believe Kate is here. And from Laguna Beach High School, Chloe Bryan. I don't think she slipped in. Is Chloe here? If you are here and I didn't check you up, please make sure I know. James Nugent was our musical composition winner at Top of the World primary. And our intermediate division winner is, I think, here. Where's Vincent? Wallstein. This is a sample of Vincent's piece. Thanks, Victoria. Congratulations, Ben. And from the Thurston Middle School, Brady Moss, you are here. Where's Brady? That's a great layered piece. I love that. That's very nice. And music composition, did Serene join us? Photography, Leighton Turner, grade 1. Top of the world. Intermediate winner, Sebastian, you're good as well. From El Moro, Memorial of Tears, Alexa. I need Alexa's right here. Oops. Finley Greengard from Thurston for Bubbles. Did I pass somebody? Where's Finley? Did I pass Sebastian? Did I? No, okay, just want to make sure I don't pass by anyone. All right, from El Moro, Visual Arts, A Lantern in the Window, Mateo, TK student. And Soka Molteni, where are you? Soka. This is from El Moro Elementary School, our division winner, Maya Trenko. Taking pictures to report back to Maya. Very good. Visual arts, we do have our intermediate top of the world winner, Arshan Rui. Arshan. You can see rubies in the montage in that. You see that? You know exactly where you live. All right, and from Thurston Middle School, Stella Reed. Stella? From Laguna Beach High School, Looking to the Future, Carly Holtz. Filmed from Top of the World. I don't believe Killinger is here. Killinger? Story. From Top of the World in Intermediate, Hadley Hunt. These are so adorable. I'm sorry you can't see them. From Thurston Middle School, Tate Warner. Is Tate here? You get airtime if you're here. Huh? Oh, Serene. Okay, hi Serene. Okay, film from, I feel like I've skipped through too many slides here, but here's film from Laguna Beach High School, Wyatt. I think it's Wyatt, where are you? Congratulations.
Voice expresses everything we think of, from our casual hellos to our greatest ideas. But being diagnosed with autism at an early age, I felt voiceless for years. I tried to speak, yet my words were irrelevant, incoherent. I felt silenced. But I would stop at nothing until I found a way to speak. I opened my mind and found that there's more than one way to have your voice heard. It took time, but within me I discovered my voice. My voice inspires. Now that I volunteer for the same autism organizations that helped my family and I when I was younger, I can help others find their voices too. My voice perseveres. Every day I challenge myself. Physically, mentally, socially, and it's worth it. My voice entertains. Every time I step on stage in my school's musicals, my energy finds a home. Most of all, my voice creates. My imagination overflows. I speak for art, writing, photography, design, song, film. Through my endeavors, I discovered that autism, once something that quieted my voice, makes it boom. Use your struggles to grow. They don't define you. Each challenge you overcome brings more strength, a louder voice. Stay open-minded. Persevere. Be heard.
We've watched a lot of these kids grow through this Reflections program, and it's so powerful to see what they turn in as young students and what happens when they graduate from high school. We're really proud. I'd like to ask all of the students to come up here so we can take the group picture. So if you're here tonight from Reflections, can you come on up? We want to give you a big round of applause, and we'd also like to take your picture. So shorties down front, if you're taller. In the back, we'll make just right up here, even with the podium, and we'll fill in this little space right here. And our photographers will be standing out that way. Okay, so you know which way to point.
I think we should go in the back. I don't know.
I think Carly and Serene both joined us. Is that correct?
Chloe and
Chloe and Serene. All right, so kiddos, can you come now in front of the high school students? Can you fill in that space? If you're a middle school student, stand in front of the high school students. Come around the chairs. Okay. Want me to help direct you? Right up here first. Right, like you're singing in the choir. So put the Thurston students in here, and the Top of the World and the Elm World kids right in here. Great. And then we have that nice reflection sign in the back. All right, and so come on out front. Good. Can you see everyone? Let's give these guys a big round of applause. Everybody get a chance to smile for all the cameras to the side over there now.
Big smile.
Good. One more big warm round of applause. For 1 second, I would just like to quickly thank Julia Becker. Where's Julia? Come on up here. Julia is my right arm. Baker, who does all the technology for us. And really to all of you, just a side note, and kids, if you want to sit down, my side note will only be just seconds long. Top of the World had a program this year to encourage the kids to participate. It was very successful. We did a mini arts workshop where each of the kids got to rank what it is in the Reflections contest that they wanted to learn about, and every student got to go to a workshop for 40 minutes in the area of their interest. It was so successful that, can I announce about June, or is that still in process? Okay, well, we have plans to repeat this amazing experience at some point, so I'm really excited about providing that for kids and letting them explore in areas that they don't have experience and get that experience at school, and then take that ball home and really run with it. So it's a really exciting opportunity, and I can't think of another school district where that type of experience has supported the Reflections program. So we're very, very lucky, and thank you very much for supporting Reflections this evening.
Jennifer, can I ask one question? Sure. Is that gonna be anywhere where we can access it so we can actually see the films or the?
I know who has the access to that technology, so I'll consult.
I
Yes.
just thought that's a see the films and the music, and it would be.
Absolutely, and we have archival from all of the past years. There's so many of you that ask about other films and music from the past, and we'd love to get that up. I think it's just a matter of time, so we will see what we can do. I know, I'd love to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you
Thank you
so
all.
much. And everybody, now, I think you would like us to. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go. And on that
Great work, Jennifer.
We all do it.
But now is the opportunity for a public comment on non-agenda items. I can't see around the corner. Is anyone out there coming forward? Do you have any cards, Janet?
Everyone left.
Everyone left? Then we move to item 11, reports, and we don't have students tonight, so we're good to Sarah.
Good evening. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you, Peggy, to the school board, and I appreciate your willingness to serve. It's a big job, and you guys put in a lot of hours just beyond these meetings, and so welcome. And Jan, I'm happy that you've been re-elected. I went to my first school board meeting 23 years ago, and Jan was there. She's still here, and I found through the years I've agreed many times have agreed with you more than disagreed with you on where you stand on the issues. So I'm really glad to see that you are back, and so we look forward to many more years. Okay, thank you.
First, I'd like to say happy holidays to everyone, because it is the season, even though it's the middle of December. I don't know where it is exactly, but it's happening. Also, Ms. Wolf, welcome to the board, and CSEA certainly extends, every opportunity you may want to take to meet with classified and chat and know about us. And of course, Ms. Baker's history is always welcome, so welcome. We also I'd like to let you know that the Classified Employee of the Year nominations went out, and this is an exciting program that has evolved over the years from no program, not that long ago, to a selected program, to an actual nomination program and ballots cast by classified, and I believe administrators cast ballots.
Administrators can
Nominate, but
voting is
all classified. So it's really an exciting evolution, and so we'll see who the winners are. I don't even know yet, okay? And on Wednesday of next week, I'll only say we're having a reclass meeting, because I know Ms. Winston wants to have something to say. And we're looking forward to that, because again, that's an evolution that has happened and has really provided real insight into our classified positions and the needs that are developed over all of the things that we've done over these years. Because if we just think, since I've been here, which is about 13 years now, technology alone and the dynamics that it has created, and then LCAP, and that's all we need to say about LCAP, because that's created a whole other umbrella of things that are needed. I will just mention that I spent the last couple of days with Ms. Winston at the SEBA Board of Directors meeting. That's all I'll say about that. It was interesting and informative, and I'm pleased to have gone, but I'll leave something for her. And some of you may know that I was asked to go back to attend the reunion of the Champions of Change in Washington, D.C. And I did go and found it incredible. First of all, the first day, there are things I didn't know about. There are 1,300 members, and that's all in the 5 years of this campaign that were chosen. And of that, 137 different types of disciplines. So school support was only one small facet of that. And we spent the full day at the Department of Transportation in panel discussions on interesting topics that, you know, we really, when you step aside, you go, there's so much happening. And through education, a lot of this is moving forward. Then we broke out into workshop groups, and I was in the youth and education. And I even just got an email today about keeping this going on and the connectivity of the people that we've met. And even within our small group, we all exchanged emails. We had the emails back and forth. And, you know, again, we're in a place that we are, in many respects, way ahead. But there are exciting things happening in Mississippi that are really interesting, and so as we move forward, those are things that I'll bring to the table and roundtable. So again, happy holidays, and I'll see you at the Christmas holiday party, sorry.
Do we have any representatives from the organizations, School Power, PTA? No, that's right. Maybe they're board members. Oh, I start? You can start. Okay.
My first report. I attended the CSBA conference with several of you, and it was really informative and interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I have lots more to learn, so I'm signing up for hopefully another conference to learn as a new board member. Oh, I'm already signed up, okay. And then I also attended the LBHS dance show on Friday night. I had no kids in the program, but I have lots of my kids' friends in the program. And as a board member, it was wonderful, and Esky Carazosa was there, and she got honored, so it was really great program. That's all I have to report.
And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know what I've done or haven't done, it's just, 'tis the season, so I don't have a report.
Well, that's so funny, because I'm just ready to shut down while you guys are talking about the report.
There you go.
Yeah, so we attended the CSBA training. There are a couple things that, one of the things Margaret talking about how far advanced ahead we are. I mean, think of that we were sitting in all the upcoming legal changes, and some of them I'm texting because I don't want to forget them. I'm emailing to Jason, and I copied mine, and he's like, on it. Like he's already aware of it, he's working on it, and these are things that are just like, they're just coming out now of these are potential issues within the last couple weeks, last couple months, and it was nice. And then the other ones that Jason responded back to, that, you know, Dean's looking at, or whoever's on it, and it gave a nice conference, because there are a lot of us sitting in there with superintendents and others that this was the first time they were hearing about it. So, I mean, kudos to all of you, because it was nice.
It did make us appreciate our staff and how on it we are. Other people are looking pretty,
Yeah, so it was really nice, and Dina was making fun of me. I'm like, well, we're not making fun of me. I appreciate you doing it, but I'm like, if I don't do it now, I won't do it. So, and then the other one that was really interesting was just unintentional biases. There's biases that we have that we don't intend any negativity with, we don't intend any, but we just have them. And it was a fascinating discussion. It gave, you know, more than Jason wanted to hear about it, but gave him the demo that, you know, to share, and a lot that he was well aware of, but it becomes a philosophical conversation, but, you know, just to share and make sure that we're all aware of, and staff's aware of just some of the training that's around unintentional bias and how we work with people with it now that saying need is what it is. And so it's a big shift in education to talk about, to have this big conversation. And then the other stuff I left in my briefcase, I didn't bring my briefcase.
that had all the worksheets that I got, Jenny and Victoria, so we all have copies of it, but it was talking about the worksheets for like when an issue comes up for communication, 7 different topics. There's things that, it was just 7 different topics, and so I will get those to you so that you can up. And then I did get to see some basketball games, and I got to see the the basketball games were fun, right? The lighting though was the conversation,
It's so awesome.
it's so awesome, and so parents have a discussion about the lighting was so much fun. I got to see Lance Neal in action with stopping kids from just playing at halftime on the courts. And it was wonderful to see the kids like, who is that guy? And one of them bravely walked across to find out who he was. And then they all decided to go sit down. And that was pretty awesome. And he let them play after, but just to see him just kind of own the space, you know, all the coaches were off, it was halftime, they weren't there. So it was nice, it was very professional. And kids appreciated the conversation, like hearing them come back and talk about how playing was. And then get to Fort Thurston, but I'll let you talk about it because should I watch it? No. I saw you scribbling stuff too. So it's always a pleasure to be at Thurston, and Jenny is so humble and always like, oh, this just happens. When we know it doesn't. So thank you for all that you make happen there.
It's always so impressive how polite and enthusiastic all the students are there. It's so much fun to talk to them. The teachers were so engaging. It's just a pleasure to be there. And your campus does look beautiful and clean. And everybody takes pride in it. So that's a definite plus. I also went to the early development measures, and Jan was there too. Jason and Alicia. In fact, I didn't see yours, but Jason and Alicia made great little crowns, very creative ones. Irene and her staff did a fabulous job, and we got some very valuable information from that we're trying to figure out how to get out and share more, specifically to areas in Laguna, and how children are coming to kindergarten with not very good fine motor skills, worse than before. And I mean, we can all surmise that might be because of all the TV watching and all the games. But also another thing that was concerning to me was less imagination, you know. Maybe from being so programmed. I don't know the reasons why, but it's interesting to look at what's happening at the preschool age and try to figure out what we can do about it. A lot of it's parent education, and you know, how do you do that? And then let's see, the CSBA conference. I learned a lot, and I was very inspired. I loved hearing the astronauts, and it's always interesting to hear how other districts do things and compare and think about, well, that might work, that might be good. And then let's see, last. I was invited to go to something called K-12 Measures with Steve Reese, and he's a data guy from San Francisco, and so he analyzes schools in a lot of different ways, and he invited me because he had analyzed Carmel, which you take like schools, and Carmel is very much like Laguna in many ways, as far as EL population and many ways that are parent education, you know, etc. And then you look at, and some of the other schools were like Pacific Grove, Coronado, but you look at how they spend their money, how much they have, different ways they spend it, and compare it to how we spend it, as well as looking at how many counselors they have for numbers of students and hours. And I love having the data to look at and make comparisons. One thing that popped out at me was talking about suspensions, expulsions, and comparing with Coronado, they do almost all of theirs in-house. We do a lot out-house. I don't know, I'm not saying one's better or worse, but it's just something to look at. So.
Okay. I stopped in for a while in the coffee break presentation, and thinking of all the information that they were providing to parents on the security on what the kids can access with their phones, and then thinking to that early development report the people in the room feeling that a lot of early kids may not be getting the chance to develop comes from so much screen time in a variety of forms. And that it's really interesting to see those two coming together, because one is dealing with kids coming into school and parents not interacting as much as they might have in the past. But we are in a different time, culturally and socially, and it's not gonna change. So, as Dee was saying, the idea was how to get the information out to parents that it's affecting their children. And this is, if you, maybe you all have the information, it was a readiness assessment that teachers did. It was not a test, it was just done in January, February, after they knew the kids, so it was like their gut feelings about it, and so it was anecdotal in that sense. But really surprising, one thing I really learned is I didn't know our district went out to the ocean.
Did you know that?
Oh, well,
The
it is,
district boundary goes quite a ways out.
so just in case, you know, if they're living on the tidal wave or something and you could get some.
Right.
So that was a really great presentation and very good information for us to use and see what we can do with that. After basketball, I saw the end of the dance concert, and there are a lot more kids in dance, and they are so enthusiastic. So that's really a great program for them, and it's grown a lot with this team. Just wanted to share with you, because I think it's really fun. We have 2 students that are playing basketball for UCLA, the Wolf brothers. Isaac graduated 2 years ago, I think, if I have them in the right order, and Alex graduated this last June. And from my understanding, when I asked Les Needles, they walked on. And they are reserve players, so if you watch the game, they get in the last minute.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I did not know it, and I guess a lot of folks didn't know it. Lance told me he'd had like 4 or 5 phone calls the next day, because we were watching the game at home, and it was the one before they went to Kentucky, and it's like, wait a minute, at the end, that kid went to our school. So I'm going up closer to the TV saying, okay, stop, so I can check him out. And it just really, I mean, that's really an accomplishment to those 2 brothers supposed to be there, and they did travel with them to Kentucky. They did not get in at that game.
But they did this weekend.
They did this weekend, in Michigan, but they didn't get in, and I wanted them in sooner.
It's kind of interesting that the one Ball brother's there, the next one wants to go next year. And then the third one
Yeah.
is not going the next year, but the year after that,
So
so.
those are the boys from Chino Hills.
Yeah, my husband and I have gone to watch them a number of times,
We watched
that's
them a
pretty
lot.
fun too.
I'm hoping that the one who's there now will change his mind, he's supposed to be only staying 1 year, so.
Well, he said he wanted to play with his brother.
Well, we'll
We'll
see.
Money might talk.
Money might talk. And I think I just by happenstance, taking our surplus food delivery for Boys and Girls Club, and the pals were getting off the bus from Thurston to come, and then they ran into the youngest, the LaPlaya group, and they were singing to them. So it was really nice. But I know that Jeff DePaul does that, right?
And Darcy
And Darcy, and they were telling me to come in and watch, and I said, I have something else to do, but it was really nice to run into them there, and they were there for a long time.
They've got the Friendship Shelter and
Yeah.
La Playa, right?
LaPlaya, this was
Boys
the
and
LaPlaya
girls.
program.
And then Boys and Girls.
And they brought the parents in who were usually getting their lesson in English. They brought them in so they could see their kids. And they had the singing and the gifts. It's really a nice outreach. That's it. So you're next.
One, I'm just, every day I'm so impressed with the work that happens in this district. A great example is just the outreach in the community that our middle school has, our high school has, and our elementary school too as well. And the PTA, I think you saw evidence of that tonight in the reflections, and I had the opportunity to go up to Talk to the World when they had all the reflection stuff on the wall, and it was just impressive. It's just quite impressive to see what our students do and the support that our families have for that work. So much appreciation again to PTA for all that work, because I know it took a lot of time. And they're so modest, they don't say much about what they do, but that takes a lot of time to put together. So many thanks to them. Again, CSBA, we spent some time, I appreciate the board being able to attend. and I know we learned a lot, and we'll be able to share that out, continue to share that out. We did have Rocket Ready today, and the keynote actually was Dr. Odipo, and she talked a little about the butterfly effect, and it was, I'm just impressed when she presents. I think the group was engaged, and she just has a real nice way of kind of conveying her message, and so I'm hopeful she'll be able to kind of bring that to you at some point as well, and let you see a little bit about some of the work that she's doing there. We had the school power meetings last week. It's all right. Okay. I had more time to make my list. So, we had the regular Laguna Beach Police Department meeting that I have quarterly with them, and we just kind of talk about things that we're looking at, any concerns, or just how can we continue to partner well. And I learn a lot from them, and they learn a lot from us, and we just have a great conversation. And so, one of the things we're continuing to talk about is our volunteer policy and some things that we're looking to implement moving forward, and just making them aware and how they might be able to help with what we need to accomplish as well. So they're very open, and I'm just so appreciative of Chief and her work, and the work of the rest of the police department. We actually met up at Thurston. That way I could go slide in. Thurston was doing some strength finders work with their entire staff, so I was able to pop over, and actually the police, they wanted to see it too, so I brought everybody into the room, and we watched the entire staff kind of work through this facilitated model. And I have to say, they did, just as Dee was pointing out, as the police were walking off the campus, they turned to me and they said, "This doesn't look like a place where kids go, because it's so clean." It's a testament, one, to Jenny and her staff, and the kids. They do take care of their school, and there's a lot of pride in that school, as well as other schools. But it was just, they were commenting on that, so I just wanted to give kudos to the custodial staff and Jenny and her staff and the students for maintaining a great looking learning environment. And the last thing, I was mentioning the strengths finders that Thurston is working on. They're kind of piloting it for the district in some ways, and we'll see how it kind of rolls forward. And we did it with our leadership team as well. I actually have a couple of books for Dee and Carol for you to go through the process as well. So the rest of the board, I was able to get their books done over there. So on that, I have nothing else.
If I could, in thanking toward schools for pointing out things that we will be discussing in the future, it's so helpful. It's so helpful when you do that. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. I'd give it to a grant. Especially our schools. That's a great work. Lisa?
So thank you, Margaret, for leaving me a few things to talk about. So Margaret, as Margaret mentioned, we were at the SEBA annual conference and board of directors meeting over the last couple of days, and SEBA is our dental and vision JPA, and it is joint managed by labor and management. So every district sends one labor rep and one management rep, and we service the board. There's not a lot that they can tell us right now about how things may change post-election. But they did give us some employee benefit strategies to consider for our committee going forward, as well as a lot of discussion on wellness and prevention, because that's really getting those chronic conditions that are comorbid under control can really save your benefit costs. So it was good information. And then stay tuned next week for Employee of the Year announcements. So we're doing a little earlier this year so that we can celebrate those folks at our holiday open house.
Did you use the word comorbid?
Yeah,
I heard that.
I've been spending a lot of time with insurance adjusters, like medical professionals.
Expand.
I'm like, wow, there's a
Good
good
dinner table talk.
Yeah.
With grandmas.
Sorry, want to expand on that. Okay.
So that's it.
And
Chris.
Chris Moore, let's go.
Well, good evening, everybody. President Victor, members of the board, welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And Dr. Gloria and members of cabinet and assorted others. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few of the highlights from Laguna Beach High School. I want to start off with just covering a little bit of some of the highlights from last year in terms of just some of the data, and then I would move from that into showing you some of the things that we're focusing on for this school year. And then we'll end with the what I'm hoping was a video that will, I'm not hoping it's video, it is a video, and I won't use the word comorbid. I don't know what it means, but I think yes. And I also have Parker Perkins here, who's one of our instructional coaches, Kristen Cowles being the other. So we'll go to the first slide, and let's see, I probably should do this myself. All right, so we'll start off with a little bit of achievement data. This was the second year that we administered the Smarter Balanced Assessments, also known as CASP, and we showed some modest growth this year. We had 82% of our students in English language arts the first time in 2015, and 83% this year were met or exceeded standards, which puts us in the top 10 in that category of high schools in Orange County. Modest growth, but room for more growth there. If you look at the math score, again, we had modest growth there. We had 55% last year, 56% this year. Again, lots of room for improvement for us there, which is typical. The math scores are typically, in most of the high schools in the county, lower than the English scores. Not always, but typically. Part of that is being tested with a format that's Common Core, when a lot of the kids have come up through a different math format, but we're making, this is a focus area for us for this year. And then a little bit of college readiness data for you. We want AP participation to continue to climb. We like kids to try the toughest curriculum that we have. We want to maximize their learning. And our AP participation has been going up. As you'll see there, and I'm blocking the way for a few people, but if you look on the left side, you'll see that it's gone up 27 students last year to this year, and they took 53 more exams, and the passing rate still remains very high at 88.4%, way above some national averages there. And also just good news here that we went up another 34 students enrolled in AP classes this year, so 293, and that was without an increase in overall school enrollment. So you have more kids taking more AP classes, which is great, and we'll see how many tests they take. In terms of the people who are graduates who meet all of the UC qualification requirements, course sequence and grades, that hovers right around 70% for us, and I think that's an area that I'd like to target, and we are targeting. I think that's something that we can capture more students to meet the UC requirements. It's fairly high, but I still think there's a lot of room for growth there, and that's a focus area for us. This was something that was interesting in that our ACT scores went up a lot last year, but the participation wasn't all that high last year. This year we went up with another 45 people participating, and even with that fairly substantial growth, we still remained either at or really close to a 5-year high on these scores all the way across the board. So really good ACT participation and scores there. Up another 45 students. So some areas of focus for us. As you can see, math achievement obviously is an area of focus for us. UC qualification, as I mentioned. But as we dug a little bit deeper into the data, we were looking at English language learners, and that's an area that I think we all want to concentrate on. It's not, we don't have that many, but anything that's good for our English language learners is good for the general population. That kind of precise instruction will help all students. So another thing, when we were looking through the California Healthy Kids surveys, we were pleased with a lot of what we saw. But one thing we weren't pleased with was what we saw as school connectedness. We didn't see a lot of connectedness when this was given last December. And so we took some immediate steps to try to connect students a little bit better, and that's been a focal point of ours. And that kind of builds on Thurston's center point as well. And we also, I think you notice, not just here in this district, but you notice nationwide, a trend in students struggling with social and emotional concerns, and that was true in our data as well. So that really kind of led us to a focal area for this year, a theme, if you will, of making connections. And so I was talking with our instructional coaches, our administrative team, and some other teacher leaders, just looking at, what we're doing instructionally is we're trying to build connections between the subjects, between the kids, but also when we look at that other data, the California Healthy Kids data, we're looking at trying to get those kids more connected to school and get more connected to each other, supportive of each other. And so it's an ongoing thing, so it's just a natural thing. We're looking at making connections in 6 different directions here. So I'm going to go through 6 different slides in ways that we're making connections, and the photos on here represent some of it. And I think it's important to point out that this isn't the kitchen sink. It feels like the kitchen sink. There is so much more that's not going to be represented here that's going on, but just some samples here. So we have a few photos here. Let's start with connecting students to content. I think we all know that's the key. I think we all know that the instructional core, what happens in the classroom, is the key to all of this. And if we can make those connections to students, to their content and to their teachers, good things happen. So up here you see we've got the Irvine Math Project consultants coming in, working with our math teachers, teaching ways to think about teaching math conceptually rather than procedurally. We still typically teach math with an equation on the board and figuring out that equation. And so now they're completely rethinking it, and that's going very well. They've spent 3 sessions, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, learning different ways to conceptualize math. Our instructional coaches are a big part of what we're doing here. They arrange observations of staff watching each other and sharing best practices. They arrange demonstrations of effective instructional techniques, spread that information throughout the staff. We see Kristen Cowell's classroom here, and what they're doing is speed dating. They're characters from history, trying to find a match for each other. So they're speed dating. You notice the fire in the fireplace in the background, making a nice cozy atmosphere as they're speed dating, trying to connect that. There's a couple of pictures here from the solar boat competition. And of course, physics is a good place for demonstrations of STEM concepts and connecting your learning to real-world applications. There's one other I want to mention where you don't necessarily see it, but in our theater program, Alexis Carroll has really taken to making the cast and the crew understand the era in which they're participating. They are studying the history, the politics, the geography, the slang, the fashions, so they know what's going on. And she surveyed them last year, and they were very appreciative and said they knew their characters better, they understood what was happening much better, their references were funnier, they understood the humor in what they were doing, and so on. Wyatt Shipp could attest to that, as he was just here and had a heck of a role. And this is the area where we talk about career and technical education, where we're continuing to build. We've added 3D design class, we've added engineering and STEM courses, and so on. So connecting, I could go on for hours, but that's just a few samples. This is an area of focus here, and these 3 pictures are from a great evening we had just a couple weeks ago, where Lynn Gregory, those who know, she's our scholarship coordinator, and she does evenings to help parents and students find out where they can get financing for college. This year did that to Spanish speakers, with Spanish speakers, and Yadi Rojas was instrumental in doing some live translating for us, and they had headphones, and it was well attended. We had about 25 people there, and Marissa Hoffman helped with putting up the screen in Spanish there, and really helping. We're reaching out in a lot of different ways for English language learners. We've got our instructional coaches working, who have divided up some of our English language learners to go into the classrooms and do some coaching for the instructional staff as a way that they can reach those students better. Yadi Rojas is doing that as well. We're having individual meetings with families and students, and with Yadi and counselors to really try to make a concerted effort at reaching out and then spreading those instructional practices. This I could spend hours on, connecting students to their future. As you know, and thank you, we've doubled the amount of horsepower in the College and Career Center recently by going full-time with both Lynn Gregory and Ann Bergen. And this is really paying dividends in terms of opportunities for students. And there's just too much here to even talk about. One of the things you will recall is that we did school-wide college testing this year. So if it's good for some kids to do on the weekend, then it's good for all the students to do right there for us. So we did all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And they'll be getting their scores back in a few weeks, so we can help them chart their course. Student panels we have on December 21st coming up. We have a panel of alumni coming back. We have to talk to 11th and 12th graders in the theater. Simultaneous to that, we'll have Road Trip Nation here, inspiring 9th and 10th graders in the gym doing a presentation about finding your future. In that picture, you can see a career fair in the top and the center. You can see a very animated guest speaker there from UCI talking about research to some chemistry kids who are there. There were about 55 kids who came in during their SDL to listen to this guest speaker. She's throwing something at them at the time. I'm not quite sure what it was. I think it was candy. You see 3 of our students at an investment forum on the right side. So And of course, you know that our College and Career Center has taken Naviance, which was kind of dead in the water for us, and replaced it with a really robust college and career website that makes use of a lot of the free services out there, and it's incredibly thick with information. I can go on and on about junior conferences are starting now, where each counselor spends an hour with families of junior students to prepare them for their senior years and to plan out where they're going. So much more. One of my favorite here in the center, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Trying to connect students to support other students is a big push, and you've seen this very visibly. We now have over 160 new student leaders when you combine ASB leadership, Link Crew, House of Representatives. Link Crew with 65 leaders and House of Representatives with 45 leaders, adding to doubling of the ASB leadership. So we've now got a lot of horsepower helping students connect to students there. We also have a peer tutor program that's been put together in conjunction with one of our students, Christine Johnson, who's working with Boys and Girls Club to pair up people for tutoring in the afternoons. We have Alana Hartford, biology teacher, who has identified previously successful biology mentors to work with current biology students who might be in need of some support. And of course, you've heard me talk about and you've seen the idea of Breaker Nation, sportsmanship school-wide, and developing a very positive fan section and building support in that way. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to throw in there at that point. So much more, but I'll just move on there. We also are looking to connect to the larger community. Interesting thing on the left side of this screen, you see a student making a presentation at the end of last year for advanced chemical research, and they had to do these formal presentations, and Mike was there, Morrison was there. And they're talking about the importance of fluorescent phage, you know, which is super important, because I have no idea what it is. But it has to do with water filtration that they're working on for a village in Kenya. That's Mindy Hawkins there in Kenya with the kids. So you got that connection there. So we've got groups of our students working with connections with Kenya, with Haiti. In the center was just a week or two ago with some students collecting data for the Crystal Cove Alliance on a 12-year-long study. They're collecting data about the impact in the ocean there. You also see there our recent food drive where we brought up 2 tons of food to help Laguna Food Pantry, and currently undergoing a toy drive, and so on and so forth. So lots of connections being made to the larger community. And then I would be remiss without talking about connecting staff to staff and connecting staff to students. One of our constructs this summer was to come up with a Twitter. We wanted people to use Twitter, so we came up with this Twitter contest where we took all the staff, made them into 12 teams, mixed classified and credentialed staff, and mixed them all up so that and put them in teams, 12 teams, and they can compete by attending student events, taking pictures of them at the student events, and using the hashtag LBHS staff challenge. And or professional development, taking photos of themselves or with a buddy at professional development or any kind of collaboration. So you can see a few tweets here. We have Carita Garcia with the Winter Dance Program, so she went to that, tweeted. We've got 2 people who probably wouldn't necessarily always work together. We've got a science teacher and a counselor there from Team 11. We've got seniors signing up for the matriculation testing that's happening this week, coming out of the Career Center. We have a student there being helped by a teacher. So again, those connections. So I think that gives you a little bit of a taste. So I want to move to what's next. So I asked a student who's very talented at putting together video, and I asked him to put a video together, if he had time to put a video together. And he said, let me see what you got. And I talked about these connections. And he put the ball back in my court wisely. He says, you show me a script and I'll help you out. And a couple weeks ago, did that, and here's what he came up with in terms of look for the making connections that he represented in this video.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I'm up. Alright, so this is the annual organizational meeting. Education Code Section 35143 requires governing board of each school district to hold an annual organizational meeting and election within a prescribed 15-day period. For 2016, the 15-day period is from December 2nd through December 16th. The Laguna Beach Unified School District Board Bylaw 9100 also specifies that the board shall hold an annual organizational meeting and elect its slate of officers. I will conduct the nominations and election of the board president. I call for nominations for the position of president of the Board of Education.
I nominate Jan Vickers. Second.
Upon election of superintendent, turn over the meeting to the board president, who will continue with elections and appointments and conduct the balance of the meeting. Mr. Ryan Ziegel served as president for 2016. So I need to call for a vote.
Did I nominate too soon?
You nominated Will Steele.
Jump the
But
gun.
that's okay. You nominated, I had a second from Carol. So, all in favor.
Aye.
Then you do roll call.
No, I didn't do anyone in talk about.
Do you want to talk about it?
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Just have to offer it. No.
It's all yours, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Probably better handle it.
Okay, then I will ask for nominations for the position of clerk of the board.
I nominate you, Perry. Second.
Any other nominations or any discussion on this? Then I call for the vote. All in favor of Dee Perry for clerk? There we go. And the next we have appointment of the Secretary of the Board of Education. Per Board Bylaw 9100, the Secretary of the Board of Education shall be appointed at the annual organizational meeting, and Board Bylaw 9006 designates the superintendent as secretary to the board. So,
We have to vote on it.
we don't know.
We don't.
Support.
I just think he should.
Congratulations.
He's
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you're secretary, you should take the notes.
You really want to take notes?
No, I'm sorry, my bad.
They will be brief. Next we have appointment of board representatives to the following groups. It's been a change this year and we are doing just the reps to the groups where we come, go to those and then report back.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are there some other groups besides these, like the
Well, we had-
CTE, is that?
Well, we had committees and right now with Jason being new, he's in the process of seeing where we're gonna go with those. And like the one that we're having in later this year is we brought the policy for Title I to everyone at the same time as the first reading, it comes back next to second reading, rather than having board members go to a policy subcommittee meeting. So trying to get the that's what he's working on, seeing a more efficient way of doing any of these. So these are the ones that where you're actually going out to their meeting and then you come back here and report.
The only other one
Okay,
which we
I
determined
didn't see the
is the College
CTE
and Career Advantage, which was formerly
The
ROP.
ROP,
That one we did already.
We did it last
And
meeting.
your vulture.
Okay, that would go in
Yes,
this with this group,
Okay, I was giving you something, answering what you didn't ask.
That's okay, so CTE or
It's
whatever it
Culture
is, it's all
Advantage
actually
was
one of those. It's in the
last
list. Okay, I just wondered if there were any more like that, I thought of that, is there anything else like that that isn't on this list? That maybe we did before?
No.
Okay,
Not
Not on
for-
this basis.
okay.
So, we have community coalition, and then we have district representative for Orange County nominating committee and the Orange County School Board Association, which are the page meetings and the dinner meetings if you choose to go. PTA council, educational foundation, school power, educational foundation endowment.
I graduated. Congratulations. Yeah, no, they, and actually PTA kind of chooses their rep and they chose Jan, so.
That's fine.
And then I'm on PTA
And
council,
shows
but
their
it's
parent. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only reason I was there, because that was.
Right,
That's what I
right.
just.
And the way it's been, Dee has been community coalition this past year, and Carol has been the alternate. And Dee has been the representative to the nominating committee and the Orange County School Boards. I've been the representative to PTA Council. Ken has been a representative to School Power, and Bill was a representative to Endowment. So we can keep the same positions, but if that's what everyone chooses, or we need someone to pick up Endowment. And Endowment meets usually on a Friday at
Eight
8.
in the morning.
They
I
do.
would do endowment if somebody would wanna take school power.
I can take school power.
Okay, we do
Unless you wanna
Fine.
give
Are you
up
okay
our-
with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And how is your schedule with things? I mean, is it okay with you?
I would like to just be her alternate.
Then
It
it's
really works real well to be her alternate.
Okay, and the only thing I would add is that, if you need an alternate, call it. I mean, it's, you know, 'cause these groups usually appreciate representation. And I know sometimes something, and that's why Victoria puts them in our general calendar, because it can come up last minute. And like a teacher needing a sub, so, you know, we all know when everything's scheduled, and you know, keep it in mind for if it's. Should we keep the alternates the same, or is that?
I don't remember what that was.
Do you
Cheryl was the
want,
alternate.
do you wanna be the alternate of school power, I'll do school
We
power, and I can do endowment?
We can, yes.
Is that what I thought? Yeah. I can be the alternate for endowment.
Kenny, did you wanna be the alternate for the Orange County nominating?
I
We have some of those nice
I would
dinners.
love to, cause you know how I feel about our chairs.
Well, nominating is just that, when you get all those forms, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to, I don't think you need to go anywhere anymore.
Well,
Yeah,
you gotta go.
Well, what I,
to-
no, I didn't, no, you can send the forms in, but I ran around and tried to meet the people.
Did
that
you
were
want to-
not-
The name nominations.
I ran around and asked if they were so and so and
Like in a
talked to
dinner,
them.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
Yes, I would happily be the alternate.
I don't think, I didn't find that we had an alternate to that last year. Oh, it was.
I think
There's
it
one
was-
listed here.
I mean, I
have
just
it.
didn't, tried to look back in the minutes from, and I didn't.
Oh, it was me.
Yeah,
It's listed as
Dee,
Heather.
Dee very graciously never called me.
We pretty much go to everything like that, and we don't usually need the alternates. Think someone's going to contribute that?
So do we have an alternate for PTA or do we need?
Dee was.
Well, Peggy's there anyway.
I'm
So
there.
Peggy could be the
Yeah,
alternate.
Cause she's there.
That's true, that's convenient.
Yeah, I'm in there.
For some reason, you're not there. Angie.
This.
No.
That's just for. The next, we then, setting the meeting dates, and we've all had those, and the time and the place for the next year. And no one has reminded any of those. So move those forward,
Can we vote on that, please?
alright. So we need a motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now that we've done that, Victoria's, she's got us, we're wired to those dates.
Okay.
And then doing it, well, we always have done it every year like this, but at least you can plan around it. Then the next are the annual reminders, and just read it for the record. The Aliso property option reminder, the Board of Education is reminded that the district has the opportunity to purchase the Aliso school property in the year 2041 for $1, and Dean has the dollar. The special note is to remain a part of all annual organizational meetings until said purchase option is exercised or expires. A dollar bill is on file in the business office as a reminder to future boards of education. This dollar bill may be used to exercise that option in 2041. The First Amendment to the option to repurchase, effective December 11th, 2012, enabled the district to establish a trust account that holds the deed to the property pursuant to any default by the current property owner. The district may record the deed by satisfying the existing loan upon any future default by the current owner. So we cleaned all that up. So. I don't know who's gonna do that. Jason.
I'll keep it going.
Resolution number 01-02, Facilities Repair and Replacement Program. The Board of Education is reminded that by adoption of resolution number 0102 on February 27th, 2001, the intention and desire was to continue this program to ensure future repair and replacement of district facilities. And we keep that in as the annual organization because it was a huge commitment in conjunction with asking the community to vote the bond money, the $59 million. And now we are ready for the consent calendar. Does anyone need to remove anything for separate vote? then I would ask for a motion for items A through J. So moved. Second. Any further discussion, any staff comment? Any public comment on the consent calendar? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All items carried. Action items, our first action item is 13, approval of board policies 6171, Title I programs. We had this as a first reading after the last meeting. And following our new procedure, we have a staff presentation.
This is again just the follow-up to the first. I want to be clear that we have been doing these programs. This is not something that we haven't been doing. We simply needed this in place to satisfy our reporting requirements under the state of California, which then goes to the federal government. So this is again just a addition to our policies that we didn't have that just clarifies related to our Title I expenditure. So I propose that the board take this opportunity to approve this item as to our board policies.
Move approval. Second. I can't see anyone out there, if there's anyone other than our in-house folks, there's no one
Just
public
us.
comment.
Just us.
Just us, well, you are public, but, and then board member questions received, and I did have one question.
Sure.
But I noticed today, when at that program evaluation, the board should use state assessment results and other available measures or indicators to annually determine whether each participating school is making adequate yearly progress toward ensuring that all students meet the state's proficient level of achievement on state assessments. Do we need to identify how we'll do that by presentation or?
That is done anyways through the LCAP process,
So we
through
do
our
we
presentation data.
We don't have to put that in there.
So it's already, that box gets checked when we do the presentation information. And because of all the changing in assessment, we weren't, there was no true actual obligation to that because there was no data for comparable data for the only data we had was ongoing was CELT, which is the language acquisition, that's changing as well. So when Amy does her local control accountability plan update and Alicia, they'll have an opportunity to kind of key in on the specific subgroups that we're talking about at these specific school sites that are Title I and how what progress we're making related to those schools.
I had a quick question too, just about the salary expenditures at the schools. Does that mean that if at a school there were a lot of younger teachers, so their salaries aren't as high, it might not reach the 90%? How does that work?
So all that's required is that if we provide for a Title I school a certain amount of dollars in expenditures, that you can't supplant, meaning you can't just basically say we're giving the same money to top of the world, we're just offsetting the cost of the Title I Programs Act, Elmora, to make up the difference. So it needs to be added benefit. And if there is a difference, we need to continue to provide the same expense. You can't lower it necessarily, there's a little bit of a growth, maybe a little bit of wiggle room. But what they don't want to see is a significant drop in the amount of money you're spending in Title I from one year to the next. So they say you should be keeping the same expenditures related over year at that site so that you don't have those swings in money. So sometimes what will happen is you may see a staff person assigned who might be a little less expensive. That the intent is that it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. But if that isn't the case, then what else can you do with the remainder of the dollars that you're not spending on that more expensive staff person? So they don't want you to say, oh, we're getting the same amount as the people. That's not, it's keep spending the dollars. So now we identify something new you might be able to do in lieu of. So that's
okay.
the concept.
I see, so, go ahead.
And they're doing that.
Yes.
And then any motions? So, and is there any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5-0. The next is approval of the college readiness block grant. I'm sorry, you're right, I'm moving ahead. I didn't know this.
Jim Fisher.
Positive certification of personnel report. Sorry, Dean.
No problem. We have the first interim report. So this is the first report the board receives after we do the adopted budget. So the adopted budget was provided in the spring, prepared in the springtime, aligned to the LCAP. And we had not yet closed out that prior year when we adopted the budget. So this first interim report gives us a chance to bring over beginning balance that was actual after we closed out the fiscal year. We bring in all carryover expenditures for programs. So if a site or a program had a balance left over, that comes over and is now budgeted in expenditures so that that money's available this year to spend. All of our projects that we may have budgeted to prepare for the summertime, if they mostly, that summer is actually really 16, 17, it really wasn't 15, 16. So those balances come over as well in those projects. We also, in September, we get a property tax roll, the governor's budget signed, and all the different stuff. So everything that we didn't know at adoption, we get now. So the first interim report, what you're doing is you're certifying your financial statements to say you have a positive certification, which means you can meet your obligations not only for this year, but the next 2 years. And so what that report consists of is not only your extracted general ledger for your general fund, it also includes all your other funds. It includes the cash flow worksheet, includes your attendance, your ADA, and it includes multi-year projections. So it goes out 2 more years and says, okay, over the next 2 years, what do we think based on assumptions of the consumer price index, step and column increases, those types of things. What does the next 2 years look like? So we've also included in this report a couple of new sections. One of those being the full-time equivalent positions. We normally do that in our adopted budget, but we thought it would be good to have that as we go through first interim and second interim as well. And so that report is on page 23. And then additional, one of the requests in the past is the interfund activity, like what transfers go from one fund to the other fund. And so there's an extractable report that we've added, which is a summary of interfund activities. And so that shows anytime dollars move from one fund to the other, whether it's an inter-program charge, it's an interfund transfer, it's self-balancing account. So anytime you're sending something from one place to another, it's a self-balancing set. So it just kind of tracks where it's going from one place to the other. So that report is on page 63. And then wraps up with the technical checks on 83. That's always been part of the report. And that's kind of just detailed to recognize that the state in itself and the software, when you extract data, we have a standard compliance that we have to do. We submit things to the CDE. And in order to do that, our set of accounts have to pass a lot of different technical checks and make sure things are in the proper categories so that that data is comparable to other school districts when it gets to the central databases of the state. So there's a lot of reports and things related to general ledger maintenance that things are in the right place, and so that kind of shows that. Our general fund, most of everything that we have runs through the general fund. There's our exceptions. We have the adult ed, we have child nutrition, we have the capital, the basic aid reserve for non-capital special reserve. Then we have the capital special reserve, which are the FERP, the CIP, which is the capital improvement program, and the LISO reserve too. So those are other funds, but everything that's not in those specific ones goes to the general fund. It's the one that has all the transactions. It has 98% of the transactions really happen in the general fund. So first interim report, secure property taxes are estimated growth of 7.67%. That's really good. Based on this stronger property tax, we've increased in the multi-year projection. We've moved the multi-year projection up from 5% to 6.5% for the next 2 years. So for 17-18 and 18-19, we've moved it to 7.5% as a projected return. Unsecured only came in at 0.75, but we usually kind of base most of what we do off the secured because that's continuing, where unsecured is a smaller piece. Prior years went down about 18.5%, but even though it's a percentage decline, it's really prior year taxes is just a cash flow. It just matters which fiscal year you receive the money in. So we always kind of base everything that we do mostly off secured property taxes because that's the the long and steady and the big dollar portion of what we receive in taxes. But there are some adjustments in other areas, and they do affect the dollars we receive, but it may only be one swing effect when we're talking about prior year taxes. So in first interim, like I said, we don't know who's going to be hired for certain positions. So the change out of salaries for retirees or attrition adjustments. CDE is one of the things we started booking in the last 2 years of STRS. So as we know, our STRS pension payments are going up. There is also a piece that the state pays on behalf of the school district. And so in the last 2 years, we're required to make that book entry. And the way we make that book entry is we just put money in the state revenue and we put money in expense for pensions. And so it inflates both our state revenue and our pensions, but it accurately reflects the amount that the CDE is actually putting directly into the STRS fund on our behalf. And so it's a journal entry, but it's significant in dollar amounts. So I think last year we closed the books with $1.3 million in that payment the state was making, and I think it was up to $1.6 million in projection of what we're doing this year. So that's $300,000 more that we put into state revenue and $300,000 more in expenditures. In the bottom line, it's a book entry. It doesn't do anything to our ending balance, but it may cause an expenditure category or a revenue category to increase.
But they're actually giving us money for a change.
They're giving the pension
The
fund
pension, right, but they're
on
actually.
behalf of our employees.
Right, but
So
they're
there's the three
effective.
pieces to the pension on the STRS side. There's employee pays a piece, the district pays a piece, and the state pays a piece. And the most significant increases are coming in the district pay piece. So the gas leak repair we had Thurston, so we knew that in the springtime, but it was on a time and materials basis. So when the gas was shut off, we said, okay, we're paying overtime to do it the month before kids get out, or we can do it over the summertime. Let's do it over the summertime. So that project shifted in the summertime, so all those dollars that were budgeted or not even known maybe in spring are now in the budget at first interim. And and then special ed services, so with new IPPs or kids that come to the district or just different types of services that we have, those increase here at first interim as well. And like I stated before, the carryover expenditures, so anything that was a project that was ongoing is now coming in, as well as the other projects, which is good. We look at number formats. We're almost at a property tax and hold harmless, which is in the LCFF, almost at $50 million, $49.6 million. So that's where our main bulk of our revenue comes in, and that's where we're at stand at first interim. The state entitlements about 3.5, and then the local sources in SELPA 2.8 million. That's kind of local funds plus what we get in pass through from the SELPA agreement for special ed. And then on the expenditure side, our salaries, certificate classified, and the employee benefit costs total $41.7 million. So, we're service orientation, almost everything that we get goes into salaries, and that's what it is. Books and supplies and services, that's 11.9 million, capital outlay 3.2 million, and then other transfers and uses 2.7 million. So the revenue breaks out like this, in a pie chart. You can kind of see the dominance of the property tax, and then on the expenditure side, the same thing with the salaries and benefits. Now the yellow books and supplies, a lot of times what that is a carryover. So we do have $1 million from carryover moving from one year to next, and so a lot of those are one-time dollars as well. And this is kind of one we try to keep an eye on here. And the only thing I did is a little bit different this year, and I kind of put out a multi-year piece because we do have a lot of multi-year dollars that we're spending that I kind of classify them as one time, but if you look at them, they are going to go on to next year, and they may go to the next year after that. So they are ongoing to a certain extent. There's a little more flexibility with those sometimes, but if you take on the revenue side, ongoing revenue, and then you have some one-time revenue, and you draw a line and say, okay, I want to make sure that we're within that. This kind of shows that we're within that on ongoing revenue in order to pay ongoing expenses, and then you identify those multi-years, and what I consider those for CLE, FERP, and then CIP. Those will be kind of multi-year commitments to some programs we're running, and then the rest of it's one time. So, and that's kind of what I'm going to keep an eye on. So, I think that's pretty much it. And if I covered most everything, we'll do that. So if there any questions you have on the first interim report?
I just wanna thank you for putting in FT and the interfund transfers.
Sure.
I think that's really important transparency, so thank you.
I just had a question, Dean,
Sure.
on the first page. Under expenditures, number 5, and then on the next page, number 6 on capital outlay, those are pretty significant increases.
Yes.
And you listed several things, I just wondered if the bulk of them fell into one category.
Yeah, so capital outlay, that would be a lot of reclassification from Forest Hill Lee is capital. So if we're buying a classroom set of furniture, we're capitalizing that, we're moving it out of like maybe non-capitalized equipment, which might you think a chair is not a capital piece of equipment, but when you buy a whole classroom stuff, we capitalize that. So a lot of it's reclassification to capital outlay related to maybe the foreseeability, but the others are the projects. So $600,000 worth of a gaff leak repairs at Thurston. That's time and materials, but that's where the project total would come in. Also the rollover, of any of the other projects that we were doing as well, whether it be building some of them, trying to think off the top of my head, but we do have some technology type projects, so some facilities type projects, and the others furniture.
I was thinking, just assuming that these weren't necessarily things that were unexpected, it's just that when we did the budget, we didn't have any amount set.
Right.
We had projects, we had things that we knew we were going to do, but we didn't have dollars.
It's always a baseline budget at adoption, and so as far as development out, and then some of it comes in planning, and so sometimes we'll know we'll have a little bit carryover rolling in after the close, and then we can load a budget, and that was kind of the case for the Forest Hill Lee. Not only did they have carryover from last year, but we didn't quite budget all that we probably were committed to in that program at adoption, because we need to see the strength, and those are the good things about the multi-years. If you can't see the dollars coming in, or if you don't get those dollars, you can always pull back on those. You don't always have to do that. And I think that was one of the areas I think with the Forest Hill League, is that we did significantly a lot about that. I think Mike's already almost done with all the Forest Hill League right now, other than maybe one fourth grade Del Moro, and other than that, he's kind of did the whole year plan already in the summer. So so a lot of that's and so we wouldn't necessarily see, even like maybe some planning in the spring, but we won't see next year's expenditures until summer, and then hit the next year's expenditures. But yeah, those are areas. So we tend to say books and supplies tends to get the carryover. We kind of load it there. But I think in the services and operating expenditures, there can be like software. Sometimes it goes in there. Sometimes it's just repairs, general repairs to facilities that can go in there. And then a lot of it is special ed outside organizational costs. So if you're just paying tuition or some type of service, it's not necessarily being provided by our staff. It's being provided by contractors to either come in and do. They may come alongside as a contractor to come in or do training. They may be there to support, or they may be sending a kid out to get support, depending on what that outside service is.
Thank you. Any other questions or ideas? Thank you. Any other motion, please, for this? Second. I will still ask if there's any public comment. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now. Oh, I should pause, I have a note. Chris, you wanted to recognize the student who did the video?
Yeah, I neglected, I wanted to publicly recognize our student Connor Brashear, who compiled and produced that video. About 50% of it he shot himself, and then compiled the rest from Break Alive footage, which he had a hand, but he's very talented filmmaker. So I wanted to make sure I said that publicly.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we have the approval of the college readiness block grant. And I have this one.
So this is the second step. First step was presentation and questions, comments from the last meeting, so the state requirement is that we use a two-step process, so we're bringing it back to you to approve the expenditures of the $75,000 in the areas that the staff has identified previously, which was also sent home immediately.
So this will go a long way to addressing that 70%.
Correct, so there are a lot of the work that they're attempting to implement, some which Chris mentioned they already have done, and others that will continue to work. So the road trip nation, the testing of all the students and for all of the PSAT, pre-ACT and the PSAT national merit, those are all things that we would be funding out of this. So in traditional fashion, there's probably a lot more things we will be doing and spending more on than 75 will go. I think Amy, it's over 3 years. 3 years?
3 years, we have 3 years to spend it.
3 years to spend same time grant, so we could easily spend that.
Yeah.
Probably already spent.
Yes,
So again, I think it was I was appreciative of the work that Amy, Chris, and Chris's staff did related to kind of identifying what else could we do. And obviously 75,000 probably is not near enough to do all the things that we could do, but this started that conversation, and I know that there will be more things that will come up, especially as we break into LCAP season and start looking at, okay, so what else do we want to do to help support our unduplicated students, because that's what this is intended for.
Alright. Trustees, questions for the staff? No further questions, so then need a motion please. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next is approval to, I should say for myself, I'm appreciative anytime anyone goes after grant money. Because it's, there's a real style and technique to writing grants. I know Irene has been successful a lot of times getting grants, and that it takes a certain talent to do that, but it's a lot of work. Thank you. Next is approval to award an independent contractor agreement with Dr. Jenny Rankin in an amount not to exceed $2,000.
So this is a follow-up to some of the work we're doing related to our GATE programming, and we're proposing to have Dr. Rankin do a presentation to our GATE community related specifically to the challenges that GATE identified students have in elementary school, at times related to still in concentration, and she is very good at helping provide strategies to not only parents but also our staff, and so she'll be able to come in and do both of those, so that's the goal. So we're looking forward to having that, and I believe it's January 25th, somewhere in that range, so.
And then a parent component.
Correct, the parent component.
What's the goal for the parent presentation?
Again, resources toolbox for our families. I think anytime that you can get an expert in front of our families, we had one presentation already by staff that went over very, very well. And we're trying to expand our outreach with our GATE community, especially at our elementary schools, as we work with our families to help them and our staff identify ways that we can continue to meet the needs of our students, so.
Ask some questions, so now need a motion please. So moved. Second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The next, approval for the purchase and pilot of Read 180 Universal and System 44 Next Generation Supplementary Reading Intervention Programs in the amount of $118,900.
So we proposed that the Board of Education approve the purchase and pilot of the Read 180 program, and this is we've used Read 180 in the past. This is the newer version, universal, that comes along with System 44. And right now, the intent will be to pilot at our elementary schools and Thurston Middle School as our ELA program 4 and 5 support for students. This cost also includes 3 days of on-site training for our designated teachers. Right now, we service about 22 students at Thurston with this program, about 15 to 16 students at Top of the World, and approximately 40 students at Elmore have received Read 180 currently. That will be receiving the new version if the board decides to pilot this moving forward. So.
Will those numbers increase if we move to third grade? Assuming,
Move to third grade.
it says we implement this program in our third grade classrooms.
System 44.
System 44.
So that's a different,
That's a component of.
but it's a whole different group of kids.
Correct.
Are they doing system 44 now in third grade, or will this be a new portion?
I don't believe we're doing system
Now
44 is
it's
new.
new, it's for kids who were below grade level and needing to kind of get ready for
For
grade
grade
180.
Okay.
Typically 2 grade levels below is system 44.
Do you have any idea how many kids that'll, you get those identified,
You know,
give or take?
I would say approximately 30.
Oh, that's good. Do we need?
Yes.
Yeah.
And our teachers, Irene and I were just speaking about this yesterday, our teachers really love this program. They find that it's the current program and are looking forward to actually having their hands on the newer updated version. So in all respects, this is exactly what our teachers have been asking for, related to kind of continue to move forward to support our students.
So will the training include third grade teachers?
Yes.
Any other questions? Have a motion please? So second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next we have approval to pilot is it ILIT? I was gonna say ILIT ELL program from Pearson Education for supplementary intervention support for ELA, ELD programs, program 5 in the amount of $1,900.
Again, another intervention program. This one, actually, though the background says at Thurston, we actually are going to also pilot at the high school as well. And so there will be additional students that will be partaking and staff at no extra cost. So we'll go from one teacher, I think, to 4 or 5 teachers being trained, and there's no additional cost for the pilot. So this is specifically for our ELD students, and we're looking forward to having some things at our high schools particularly, and our middle school that are going to support students who are below 2 grade levels below. And that's what this program does. So again, definitely a need that we have for our students. We will determine exactly how many students we think. There's about 20 plus or minus a few. So we'll, as we get into the pilot, I continue to identify potential students that might fit this. So.
Questions? Is this program 5 anything saying this program 5 on grade 180, or they just happen? Is it because it's the grade levels below?
Yeah, program 5 is
So it's
identifying
similar to
student
what program 5
population.
means for grade 180.
Right, exactly.
Well, do we have a motion?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is approval to award contract for playground turf installation at Top of the World Elementary School to KYA Services Inc. in the amount of $80,031.21. Jeff, please.
Yeah, this is like what you read, it's basically laying crush pad and the turf on top and replacing the wood chips, and it's basically the playground there. We got a good, excellent advertisement, the mandatory pre-bid job walk, and we got 3 bids submitted, and this is the lowest bidder.
No more Beatles.
Maybe we could just put some underneath it, let's put some down there and we put on top and it's scary.
No one would
I like that
science.
idea.
Yeah, no more science experiments.
Materials. Any questions? Any motion please?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now we are going to adjourn back into closed session. So, So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So my.